Michael, first of all, looking back at Tuesday, it felt like a fair result in the end, a far hard-fought draw.
Yeah, when I watched back the game, looked at it back and saw everything. What I thought on the night was the same. I thought we had good control in the first half. I thought we dominated them in the first half. I thought we looked really good, back to our usual self. Could have took a couple of chances and changes the game, and then the second half a bit evens with their changes and what they did, and then I think the last 15 minutes they probably got on top of us a little bit without really causing too much problems. So I think in the end a fair draw, but also in reflection a good point, because that's a tough place to go. They've rolled over Huddersfield there, they've rolled over Luton there, and they're going strong. So even though we always want to win, I think in the end it's a fair point, but a good point.
It felt as well that Justin sort of gave you great hope for the future, really, in terms of what he did in terms of pressing the ball, not just obviously in terms of taking on the strikers, but pressing the ball as well.
Yeah, I think we ask a lot of every player in how we want to play, and similar to every team that's top of a league, you have to do it from front to back, whether it's with the ball and without the ball. And Justin, we've seen moments of Justin, haven't we, since he's been in. He's took a bit of time to get going with his international duty and being available or not available, or coming back on a Friday and not quite ready. But we thought we'd give him a go up there, and I thought he did well. He's got loads to learn. He's still a young lad, but he adds again to that front line decisions, if you like, and who we could play up there. We've got Colo, we've got Freddie, we've got Justin, we've got Rob Street. We've got a good variance of the number 9s, but someone needs to make a real big claim for it, probably score a few goals and get on top of it. But they've all got different profiles, so they can all play it in a different way, which I think is exciting. And away from home for Bradford, I thought Justin did very well at times on his own and stretching the line and getting in behind them, which was good to see.
I was looking through the form guide, and Lincoln are well placed in both in terms of sort of away performances and overall. But the one thing that struck me is the number of goals in those 6 games. You're sweating those goals to get the maximum number of points out of it. But I guess the next step, and you talked about this with Rob on Tuesday, is to try and convert a few more chances.
Yeah, we know, but it's important. We need to hit the target more. But we're creating chances. The feel of that first, like I say, we had complete control in the first half. We need to create a few more chances, if anything. Not just the finishing, but the final ball, or if you like, the assist to be cleaner in those moments. But we'll create chances, and we'll go through moments where we need to put more away. There's no doubt about that. But there's no crisis for me. There'll be times where we'll score a lot of goals and times we won't. You look at Peterborough. You could argue that we had some great finishes against Peterborough in a 3-0 game, and there'll be more like that. But we've just got to keep moving in the right direction. And for me, the most important thing when you're creating chances, you stay solid at the back. And our defensive record, I thought Sonny Bradley, Tom Amon, all the back 4 on the day were really solid. So even though we're evolving it and we keep getting better, I thought it was a good performance. And when I reflect to a Leyton Orient game, we weren't on it. That wasn't the performance we wanted, even though we created chances. So, but it's a balance between getting the performance and getting the chances. I thought Tuesday night we looked good at that.
Your captain Tendai was talking to me on Red Imps Club last night, and I thought it was really interesting. We were talking about what would happen if there was an incident of racial discrimination towards one of the Lincoln City players, and he made clear he'd go and talk to the referee, but if it continued, he would consider definitely taking the players off the pitch. I assume that's something that you probably have talked to the players and obviously to Tendai at some stage, and you support.
Yeah, I'll support it. There's no doubt in my mind. There's good processes for this now in the game. So if anything like that ever happens, you can speak to the referee. The referees have to, treat it seriously. Whether it's referees, whether it's players to players, whether it's fans to players. So we're fortunate we haven't had that in our place or in our game so far. But there's great processes put in by the FA and EFL to support these things. So.
And one of the other issues that came up was, and I appreciate something you can't change, but came up was the number of black coaches, black managers in the game. And if you look at the Premier League, there's something like 40%. In the EFL, it's something like 30% of black players. And yet we've only got 4 black coaches in the top 5 leagues, 4 managers. Is it something that football needs to be better at in terms of representing?
I think it's where society needs to be better at representing. I think football's a mirror of society. I've worked with some really good, black coaches. Ryan Gary's a good friend of mine. There's some good coaches in the game, and I think it's about opportunity for ex-players, black players, anybody that can get the opportunity. It's tough in football, and I support everything that helps any walk of society try and get into football, because it's an amazing industry to be in. And however we can support and open doors to everybody is how I see it.
And just one other final thing before we talk about the Salford game. IFAB this week, who make the rules for the game, they've had a meeting, a virtual meeting, and one of the things they've talked about is the amount of time now being taken by teams taking throws, goal kicks, corners, and they particularly talked about introducing the 8-second to 5-second rule for throw-ins and also for goal kicks. And I just wonder what you think about it, and would it be different if you were away from home, maybe, I don't know, at Bradford 1-0 up, or whether you're at home trying to get the equaliser against an opposition?
It's a good question. I've lived in some of the, was at Loughborough and watched many other sports and grew through many other sports, if you like, and some of those sports, basketball, hockey, 4 seconds to get the ball back in play. Like, it's out there in other sports, so I think, but our job as coaches is to push and bend rules as much as possible to your advantage. So, I get a report back every game from the referees that I ask for about how long the ball's been in play. So, our last home game, the ball has been in play 47 minutes. And I don't think that was down to us. I think that was down to the team coming to our place and trying to slow us down. So, there's definitely a tactical advantage either way. And whilst it is what it is with IFAB, you'll find ways to get on top of it and use it to your advantage. So if you're winning a game, of course, you're going to try and slow it down. If you're losing a game, or if you're away from home, you might try and slow it down. So I just think it's part and parcel of coaching. It's part and parcel of winning. It's part and parcel of the game. It's not for us to decide the rules and laws, but it is for us to try and get the best out of them.
So it's almost like if IFAB did make a change, then you as coaches, not just you, but all coaches would look at it and go, all right, well, what can we do now to get the best advantage for our team? Because that's what you're looking for, isn't it?
Yeah, sure. And I even go to things like VAR and non-VAR. It makes a difference. Like people, like the game at Premier League level can't always look like it looks at League One. So, that's my massive learnings over the last couple of seasons is, there's lots of advantages at different levels of football. And I think our job is to survive in it and then thrive in it and then find advantages with it. And I think that's the beauty of being, a good team is working those ways out. Some people call it dark arts, some people call it game management, some people call it whatever you want to call it. But the reality is we're all trying to win, and that's important. I think the biggest thing for me is the referees understanding the intention of it rather than just happening and then getting on top of it that way.
FA Cup at the weekend, it's special, isn't it? It's still special. I feel like it's probably more important now to clubs like Lincoln City at League One, League Two, the non-league clubs, than maybe some teams in the Championship who are focused on getting to the Premier League and some teams in the Premier League who are focused on staying there. It feels like sort of League One down, it's still a huge deal.
I think the FA Cup is just a brilliant competition. Everybody wants to do well in the FA Cup. It's the biggest traditional cup competition in this country. When you speak to our overseas players, they all know about the FA Cup and the beauty of the FA Cup. That's no different from us. I think sometimes conflicting priorities of the league and the bread and butter of the league and what people want to achieve, I don't think that changes from Championship to League One, because there is an opportunity to give some players a chance, but it comes from probably needing to rest or little niggles that you've picked up along the way. So I think always the challenge with the FA Cup and even the Carabao to some extent is getting the balance of things right, where you can rest, or you might have a high risk player. Do you risk him for that ways? You might risk him if it was 3 points on a Saturday. But the reality is we want to go good in the cup competitions. You saw how putting a decent team to try and go and win the Carabao out there allowed us to get a good draw in Chelsea, and what a night that was for the place and what a night that was for the club and fans. So you have to respect every competition we play in this season, and I do that, and we want to put a team on the pitch that we think can win the game. A
tough one as well. Salford going obviously very well in League Two, a very experienced manager.
Yeah, so I know Carl well. He knows his ways around football. They're going strong, third in the league. I think 2 points off the top at the moment. They were in the playoffs or close, last season to coming up. And you only have to look at the teams that have come up this season where they are and how strong they are. So there's no doubt in my mind this is a really tough game for us. They'll be a strong side. They've got some good players. They're good in transition. They're hard to break down. Obviously, it's at their place. So it should have the makings for being a really exciting cup tie. But we want to go through and we want to go into the next round. So yeah, going to be a tough game.